So this is a quick explanation of how exactly I make the hydrogen for my gun. This is muriatic acid. This is my aluminum tube. This is my reaction chamber. And this is the separation chamber slash bubbler. And basically what I do is I fill this with 200 milliliters of water, and there'll be 100 milliliters of the acid. You always have to mix the acid with water or else it reacts too violently. I learned that the hard way. This bucket will be filled with ice and water that is salted to decrease the temperature more so that the chamber can stay cold, because when the acid reacts with aluminum it creates a lot of heat, which is how I destroyed my old container. And basically I just drop a small piece of the aluminum into there and it does the rest. What happens is hydrochloric gas, chlorine gas, and most importantly hydrogen travel up this tube, down into this container, through this little tube, into the water. The gas bubbles out, the chlorine and the hydrochloric gas get reabsorbed into this water, and the hydrogen bubbles up and gets collected by this tube, which comes out here, and I filled up a balloon with that and then put it into my gun. This is my actual gun, and I'll start from the back and work to the front. Right here is the igniter. The lead comes from this little switch, which is basically a grill switch, and it runs through two little tubes in this pipe section here, and the red wire goes along the outside to this electrode. The negative wire, which you can't see, is grounded to this tube right here. This, I'll just show really quick what it happens when I hit the trigger in here. It basically sparks like that. This tube runs through here to a little T-section that sits about here that connects to the barrel fitting, and also to a tube that is right here, if you can see it, and it runs along here to this needle valve, which doubles back into this little barb fitting so that I can connect the gas input, and by turning this can allow the gas to flow through this tube into the combustion chamber, and then by turning this it locks the valve so that there's no backblast. And then basically when it ignites, the blast travels down this tube through the breech, which I have not fully cut out yet. I've just been loading this by packing them through the front like a musket. And it just basically shoots through, and then this right here is still a work in progress. I'm basically going to use that to launch ST rockets out the bottom of it through the use of a switch. This is my combustion chamber, which was basically a stainless steel water bottle that I got on sale. It's proven to be very durable, except this end got inverted on my last test firing when I shot a AA battery out of it. I just popped it back into place. I initially was going to put the igniter right here, but being as it's stainless steel, it was pretty much impossible to drill. Just left that little tiny mark. And the inside you used to actually be able to see into, but now it's pretty much charred black from my test fires. And I don't know if you can see this, but there is a small ring that was here that was pretty loose when I first bought this, so I put this JB Weld seal around it. And the basic firing process, at least for my test right now, I am not using the hydrogen because it's still pretty difficult to make, because once this reaction starts, it does not stop until the aluminum is pretty much disintegrated. So to not waste aluminum or hydrogen or risk running that for hours because I have very high quality aluminum, I have just been using some cologne. And all I've been doing is doing a brief shot, waiting 2 seconds, and then another shot. I don't know if you can see it, but the contents are kind of swirling around in there. Then I insert the igniter through the tube and screw it on, which is really difficult to do with one hand. Hannah will help me with this part. Just rotate it other way. There you go. And as you can see, it's just threading onto that connection that I showed you earlier. They're both 3/4 inch threaded fittings, which is why they go together so well. And then this is the full assembly. You just screw it until it doesn't screw anymore. And this is my work table of sorts and other projects and such. And basically what I've been doing to test it is loading a little balled up piece of toilet paper right into here. Hannah, could you help me again? I need 2 hands for this because it's a pretty difficult process. You just, yeah. I'm going to take some of this off of here. What I found is if I pack this too tightly, it ends up blasting out through a little escape valve I made there. I'm going to stuff that in there and use just drill bit to push it down about 3 or 4 inches. And now it's ready to fire. And it's pretty straightforward. I'm not doing this in the apartment because it's very loud and very powerful. I'm going to stand behind me so you can maybe see it better, like back there.
It's good.
Why not?
I can see it very well.
You see the full thing?
Yep.
Alright, and squeeze the trigger and voila. The nice thing about this is that it is not really limited in the types of fuels it can use and the types of ammo you can shoot out of it. As long as it fits into this 1/2 inch barrel, it'll work. And unfortunately there's not a whole lot of objects laying around that I have that are able to sit nicely in there, which is why I used the toilet paper as wadding. And I'm going to pack this little piece in there pretty lightly. And the reason I'm doing it lightly is because I'm going to shoot out another AA battery, if I can find where I set it. Couldn't find the AA battery, so I'll be using this old photo capacitor that's missing its terminals because I ripped them out. And just put that in there, and let's see if I can prop this up like that or something. So you can maybe see a little bit there. Propping it against the breech of the gun. It's kind of funny. And pack the rest of the wadding in the front of it. So it's basically wadding, projectile, wadding, and then push that back again. You can see it's in an old pen. And unscrewing the combustion chamber. When I get this finished, I'm not going to have to do this part. It'll just be fueling from here by using this guy. But until I get that fully set up, I'm going with this method, which is kind of like how you would normally fuel up a potato cannon or whatever. I've tried several times to JB weld this, but when, I don't know if you heard it when I hit the trigger, but there's a little clink sound before the pop. That is because the explosion inside my can is so powerful that it exceeds the pressure rating that the JB Weld is rated for. Which is surprising because JB Weld's rated for quite a lot. So just blow out the smoke and whatever else is left in there from the last time, and then do the same process again. I'm just going to do it sideways this time. Doesn't matter too much because the projectile is creating an airtight seal inside the barrel, So if I turn it sideways, as long as it's threaded on, it's not going to spill out any gas. And this is a lengthy process right here. And there. Sorry, I had to use my elbow. And just what? I got it. No, maybe not. One problem is that the spark is pretty high voltage, and so this insulator doesn't quite do the trick. If the crook of your thumb touches it and the barrel touches any part of your body, it just arcs through you instead of through the spark gap. So let's try that again. So I basically hold it like this to avoid my hand touching it. And that's one quirk I still have to work out. If you don't clear out the CO2 and smoke from this entirely, it will not fire. There's not enough oxygen to mix with the fuel. And so the ionizing reaction doesn't happen. A little bit of chemistry there. But we check to make sure that the igniter still does in fact work and that I haven't damaged the wires. And pull the fuel out. It smells really terrible. And then 1, 2, and sometimes one thing I've found works is if I rotate it while I'm screwing it on, because that nylon ring will kind of stir things around a little bit. So that's fully threaded on now. And this is with the capacitor loaded as just a dummy projectile. Come on. I'll get these quirks worked out eventually. That's what happens when it gets packed too tight. I don't know if you heard that, but when this does not, it did push the paper out a little bit, but I have a small opening beneath the fuel line so that if there's too much pressure buildup in the tank, it escapes out of here instead of, bursting this line, or worst case scenario, bursting this chamber right underneath my arm. So the benefit of hydrogen, well, there's two main benefits, but one of the biggest ones is that hydrogen is a very light gas, so you can pretty much predict where it's going to go in the container. And when I used it in a test with the gun that I made that is now part of this bigger one, I had a much higher fire rate and much more powerful shots because hydrogen burns faster than any other gas. And so the expansion is a lot quicker and a lot hotter. Whereas this is burning relatively slowly. And hydrogen also needs a lot less oxygen to mix with because it's a noble gas, whereas this is a combination of alcohol vapors and butane and all kinds of other things. Anyway, I'll get it to work eventually. Alright, so I have rinsed out this container because there's a lot of buildup in there, and I tried filling it by inverting the cologne can to get more of the propellant than the actual cologne, and it's still loaded, so that's not the best way to check, just saying. Hopefully this time will work. I'm afraid there might be still water in the container, might keep it from firing, but we'll see.